government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Another very important transmission lined up for you today. It is Thursday, the 7th day of April, 2011. Lyndon LaRouche via video connection for the PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, audio for all the great radio listeners, will be joining us for an hour coming up in the second hour today. And then a man who needs no introduction as well, David Icke, will be joining us with his take on Bretton Woods II, the open announcements of world government to be our political and financial savior via the crisis the banksters created themselves. And we'll also get into Libya. So Lyndon LaRouche and David Icke joining us today. There has been another big earthquake in Japan. First, they reported it was 7.4. Now they're reducing it down to 7.1. A small tsunami, only about a meter high, did go into the east coast of Japan, but Fukushima is reporting that it didn't cause any problems. With their history of lying, we don't know if that's true or not. But in incredible developments, earthquake shakes wide area of southern Mexico. A 6.5 earthquake shook a wide area of southern and central Mexico today, sending people fleeing into the streets, but there were no initial reports of damage or deaths. Certainly good news there. Magnitude 6.5 in Veracruz, Mexico. Originally 7.4 near the east coast of Japan, now downgraded down to 7.1. This is the big development, though. Japan considers wider nuclear evacuation zone. AFP is reporting. Of course, our government's saying no problem. Don't worry about the radiation blowing over directly towards us. But in the opposite direction of the fallout, MSNBC reports South Korea shuts schools amid Japan radiation fears. We are geographically closer to Japan than the U.S. or Europe. People are bound to be more worried, the president says. So most of the schools have shut down or gone to partial days, telling people to stay indoors because of rain blowing in that reportedly has some of the backwash of the radiation from Japan. Getting a lot of emails saying, where's Paul Watson the last week? Where's Paul Watson? Well, his wife is Chinese. Once a year, they visit her family in China for a week and a half. He'll be back in a few days, but I couldn't dissuade Paul from going to China, which is directly in the backwash of the radiation. Not just the stuff blowing around the world, but the winds sometimes change south, and then it blows it over towards China and South Korea, and then blows back up into the higher trade winds and out east again towards the United States. But they are picking up higher levels of radiation in South Korea and in China. So big news there. They're taking it serious, but not here. New York City restaurants using radiation detectors on fish from the Pacific. We're going to be going over all of this after the first break. Also, it's now coming out, what we reported on over a month ago. Gaddafi paid millions to U.S. firms to polish his global image, and CNN is scapegoating the lobbying firms, who I'm not a fan of, but for trying to polish his PR image. But the lobbying firms made the point that they interview in this piece that we have linked up on Infowars.com that Bush did a deal with him and said that he was now a good guy, and so we were directed to basically polish his image. And so why are you scapegoating us? I'm surprised CNN even let him respond that way. I mean, they're like low-level street thugs. Do you go after them or Don Corleone, their boss? You know, why did the federal government do this? Well, it was to lure him in so they could get spies and agents and systems in place to then take his country down. Rebels are shoring up their status with diplomacy and oil money. Also, I see these reports every few months, going back for 15 years. There's a new one in the Associated Press. When a police dog jumps at you or tries to bite you, or you're walking through a parking lot and the window's open in the squad car and it barks at you, if you yell at it, you get arrested. And that's now happened again. We'll break that down as well. Hello, friends. This is Alex Jones. You've heard me talk about Cal Ben 5-star soaps for years. This is an American-made product of the highest quality and compares to nothing you will find in stores. You can buy factory direct, shipped via UPS right to your door. Check them out on the web at 5starsoap.com or call 800-340-7091. Take my word for it. Once you've used Pure Soap, you won't buy anything else. Since 1947, Calvin Soap Company has been showing consumers that soap can be tough on dirt and gentle on the environment. Buy American and stay clean, as well as support InfoWars. Visit 5starsoap.com today or call 1-800-340-7091. Well, Marty, what do you have to say?
As founder and owner for over 63 years, satisfaction is guaranteed or double your dirt back. Call us at 1-800-340-7091 for a free catalog or visit our website, 5starsoap.com. Thank you.
Hundreds of nations have fallen to tyranny in the last century alone. This is our last chance to not relive history.
As we're finishing off this agenda, they'll be pulling the rug from underneath Americans at home.
They have tremendous influence on our president and Congress, and they really are calling the shots.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us as American citizens to pay attention.
Fall of the Republic identifies the enemies of our nation, the criminal offshore cartel, hell-bent on destroying sovereignty, and on its ashes constructing world government.
Tim Geithner, Bernanke, they're arsonists. They're asking for more matches. And the Congress is saying, who do we make the check out to?
Today seems like nobody does care. And right now in Washington, D.C., we have seen a fall of the Republic.
Get your copy of Fall of the Republic on DVD at Infowars.com or watch it online right now in super high quality at prisonplanet.tv.
Alex told you the government announced recently that the recession is over. It ended on June of 2009. The millions of Americans unable to find work might not agree. Perhaps the recession ended for the bankers and government employees, but for the rest of us, things seem to be getting worse. Gold and silver haven't heard the news either. They've begun their long-expected journey to the moon. In addition to converting your shrinking dollars into gold and silver, you should consider a food savings account from eFoods Direct. They both make fabulous investments. Food is our greatest dependency, and we know it will be more precious than any financial resource. You and your family need food to survive a crisis, and you can't eat paper, stocks, or metals. Alex has been urging you to invest in delicious, easy-fix meals to enjoy now or save for long-term. This will freeze the cost of your food while you can still afford it. Visit efoodsdirect.com on the internet or call 800-409-5633. That's efoodsdirect.com or 800-409-5633.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, back Sundays 4 to 6 p.m. We are here live, blasting out on the AM and FM dial, XM radio, global shortwave, and, of course, the #1 radio show on the internet, according to Shoutcast, Alexa. The list just goes on. And you, the listeners, are the tip of the spear. Integrating with this radio show against the globalist. I want to salute and thank you all as the truth rises. As the tyranny comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord is lifting up a standard against it. Now, we have Lyndon LaRouche, who's never been a guest on this show, joining us via video and audio connection coming up from his studios in the second hour. David Icke's going to be joining us on the economy. Bretton Woods, too, with George Soros and the crises they've instigated to bring in their solution, open world government. We'll also get into Libya with him. Obviously, a 7.1, downgraded from a 7.4, hit the east coast of Japan again today, a meter tall. So that's not very big, thank God. The tsunami did come in. Another 6.4 earthquake hit central and southern Mexico today. Didn't cause a lot of damage and didn't cause any deaths, but it shows that tectonic activity is certainly intensifying. We're going to be going over that information. We're also going to be breaking down the economic news. U.S. going same route as Greece, Portugal, says top economist CNBC. But before I get into all of that news and then run out of time with the two guests we've got coming up, I want to spend just a few minutes on Glenn Beck. Not because we're even talking so much about Glenn Beck, that we're discussing what's happening to the mainstream media and the alternative media. Glenn Beck, obviously yesterday, announced that he's going to be phased out of Fox. He doesn't know how soon that'll happen, but his contract's up in December, and that as soon as they ask him to leave, he will leave. It could be a week, it could be a month, it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. We don't know when Glenn Beck is going to leave. Now, that in and of itself is not that important of an issue. I did talk to Fox insiders in the last 2 months and was told the word was that Glenn Beck was going to be forced out. So if anyone is wondering whether Glenn Beck quit, Roger Ailes talked to the AP yesterday, and he said half the media says we fired him. The other half the media says he quit, and we're happy with that. I'm not going to say. Well, I can tell you the word is that they could see his numbers dropping by about a third a year on average, and that he was the lowest demo they had in young audiences during their primetime shows, and that was the big kicker. And that he didn't fit in with their model, and the George Soros groups knocking out 400 of his advertisers. That was also basically the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, listening to Glenn Beck yesterday, listening to him this morning, monitoring it, he basically said what we've been saying for years, that the mainstream media is imploding. That's the main reason his ratings went down. Along with the rest of Fox, CNN, MSNBC, they're all in free fall because people don't like mainstream news anymore. Once you've heard alternative news and the wide spectrum of alternative ideas, doesn't mean it's all accurate or even correct. It's still just a wider spectrum for people to basically sample from. Once you're given more choices, there's no going back to broadcast TV, to cable TV. It's falling apart. It's fine to have cable TV or broadcast TV as a supplement, but Glenn Beck this morning, I was listening to him driving in, said that the old media is basically dead, and he said, those of you celebrating my leaving Fox, you're fools. You ain't seen nothing yet. And he said he's going to target a younger audience. Well, Glenn Beck, younger audiences don't like you. And I've seen the demographics. Your average person that watches you is about 65, 70. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Those are great people. But Fox News' audience is alternative media for old people and people that don't understand the spectrum shift. But the larger issue is, what does Glenn Beck's meteoric rise and now a bit of a fall signify? Just 3 years ago when he joined Fox, 2.5 years ago, Fox said there's no such thing as a world government, no such thing as a Council on Foreign Relations, no such thing as the Bilderberg Group. They would not speak its name. Since then, it's all over their channels. And you see Hannity, you see all of them moving more towards what Beck was doing. So basically, they're getting rid of Beck so they can just basically take my information, hence his information, and spin it in a Republicanoid way. But on a larger front, hanging over this are the statements of Senator Jay Rockefeller, Lieberman, and others openly saying they'd be happy to not have MSNBC or Fox even being on the air. That's a Jay Rockefeller quote from 3 months ago. Because to get market share, they've got to be more radical, more honest, more hardcore to compete with the internet, where we're not controlled or restricted by anyone but our own ideas and our own conscience. And so they allowed MSNBC with Oberman. They allowed Fox in the establishment to try to corner the market of alternative views and awakening through MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. But that basically, the system's discovered, just pushes more people to the real McCoy. Once they've had the facsimile, the twisted doppelganger, the fraudulent establishment version of real news, that simply became a gateway, a doorway that swung both ways. Sure, we send listeners to them, but they send even more listeners and viewers to us. And they look at my YouTube channels, 300 million views the last 2 years alone. They look at my films together, over 100 million views separately. They look at the #1 numbers meteorically rising, InfoWars dwarfing both of Glenn Beck's websites combined, Limbaugh's site combined. And they see the growth curve. They see Drudge growing. They can't compete. Drudge recognized this 5 years ago, began reporting on Bilderberg Group, began reporting on the New World Order, began linking to our stories. You could see it whether he began to awaken or whether he understood which way the wind was blowing. I haven't talked to Drudge, so I don't know. But you notice he was run out of Fox for refusing to not be, pro-death. He was run out for being pro-life and being an activist. And what was that, a decade ago? And so what's happening here is the establishment in all their communiques are saying, stop the rhetoric, stop the anger. The people are too dangerous. They could rebel against the government. We've got a real revolution on our hands, politically and perhaps physically. So the message is that